The word genius gets thrown around a lot. We hear it in all different contexts, from sports. Leo Messi is a genius. To art. The Statue of David is a work of genius. To music. Trey Anastasio is a genius on guitar. These assertions might very well be true. I mean, of course, I chose some very extreme examples, but oftentimes when someone says the word genius, what they're really talking about is someone who is highly skilled. They know exactly what they're doing in a certain field. Maybe their work is derivative and maybe it does not perhaps push that field forward, but there's nothing wrong with that. Not everyone can be Leo Messi, of course. Now this week, we read Parashat Vayakhel. The Parashat's opening lines remind us of something we read a couple of weeks ago, that Adonai assigned specific tasks in the construction of the tabernacle to artisans and workers Adonai knew to be highly skilled. Now, these jobs weren't given at random to any of the myriad of workers present in the Israelite camp, but rather they were chosen deliberately and with forethought. There is a midrash on this parasha that says that Adonai showed Moshe Sefer HaChaim, the book of life, in which Adonai had inscribed the names of all people who would ever live, as well as their fates. In the book, Adonai clearly noted that Bezalel, one of the artisans referenced by name, would take charge of the construction of the Mishkan. Now, Rabbi Charles Saviner has an interesting commentary himself on this parasha, and he builds off this midrash and says, the trust that Adonai and Moses placed in Bezalel prompted Bezalel to push himself to become a leader. He was, of course, talented in his own right, as Rabbi Saviner argues, but Bezalel needed that little extra push to take up the mantle of leadership. Last week, I spoke of leadership and specifically how in the instance of the golden calf, Adonai and Moses failed at leading a confused and traumatized population. Moving immediately to punishment and to execution as a way of reasserting control did little to convince the Israelites of Adonai's supremacy, though one might argue it did have some success at getting the Israelites to fall in line. By contrast, this week provides a different perspective on Adonai's leadership. Adonai, the Tanakh tells us, endowed Bezalel with the divine spirit of skill, ability, and knowledge in every kind of craft, and inspired him to make designs and to give directions. I want to unpack these verses a bit because I believe they give us a good understanding of how the Torah recognizes the characteristics of a strong leader. Certainly to lead, especially in any artistic endeavor, one must have skill. For example, I know that I should absolutely not teach anyone how to draw. It would be a disaster. I would have to know what I'm doing, and I don't. Based on the Torah, we know that we can check that box for Bezalel. A variety of knowledge is also important. If you're leading a diverse group of people, you need some capacity to understand what each of them is doing in each of their tasks to see the whole project through to completion. It also helps if your background appeals to a wide audience, as Rashi points out Bezalel's does. Again, we can check this off. But it's the final aspect, the inspiration, that I think is the most important. You must have a vision for what you want to accomplish, even if that vision is divinely inspired. The best communicator, someone that everyone wants to follow, even this person will fail if they don't know what they're leading the group to do. To this point, we've read multiple chapters providing the vision for the tabernacle. We know in extreme detail what it is to look like, and we can visualize, based on the text, the clothes that the priests are to wear. Presumably, one might argue, an omnipotent God could have constructed the tabernacle out of nothingness, but Adonai instead chose to have humans lead the project. Bezalel, an artisan from one of the lowliest tribes of Israel, received ability and inspiration from Adonai and successfully directed other Israelites in the construction of this incredibly complex project. I said last week that Adonai has repeatedly shown good leadership, especially in the way Adonai has endowed his followers with wisdom and capacity. as we move into this week, I want us all to think about what it means to be a leader and to lead with inspiration, clarity, and empathy.